Hey guys, and welcome to this week's episode of D3Live. So today we're going to be talking about a topic that's been on a lot of people's minds this week, which is which one is better, the iPhone 4 or the Google Nexus S? Now, of course, in case you're not familiar, the iPhone 4 is not a whole lot of introduction needed. It is the latest Apple smartphone, the latest in the really successful iPhone line. The iPhone 4 has a lot of really great features, and I'll go ahead and compare them in just a second. Now, on the other hand, there's the brand new Google Nexus S, technically made by Samsung, but it's kind of branded as both. Basically, the Nexus S is the latest generation of Android smartphones, and it brings with a lot of really cool features, namely the fact that it has Gingerbread, or rather Android 2.3 Gingerbread pre-installed. So a lot of people are kind of thinking, well, these are probably two of the best smartphones available on the market, but which one's going to be for you? So I'm going to go ahead and kind of give you guys some of my thoughts and opinions, try to help you out. So one of the major things about the Nexus S that I like is the fact that it does run on Android. Now, if you've ever watched any of my videos, you know that I'm a big fan of Android. I like the fact that it's open. There aren't a whole lot of restrictions. It's really simple to do most of the things you need to do. So what this means is you can go ahead and download pretty much any app you want. You can go ahead and root it fairly simply, usually on most phones. So you have total access. You can change up the look of it, the feel of it. Pretty much anything you want to do is totally up to you on an Android phone. Now on the iPhone you can do this somewhat as well. However, it's a little bit more difficult. It generally involves jailbreaking, which I'm a big supporter of that as well. I do lots of videos on it. But generally it just seems to be Apple does not like it nearly as much as Google does. And they kind of tend to lock it down. So a lot of things you might have problems with on the iPhone as far as modding and kind of customizing your phone. However, that's a small point, not a big deal for most people. Now what the big deals are, of course, is how they work, how they function, all that kind of stuff. Well, both of them are going to be very good as far as this goes. Now, the iPhone 4 in the United States, of course, is available at different carriers around the world, but in the United States, it's only on AT&T, which has less than stellar, coverage. It's just not the greatest carrier. Likewise, on the Google Nexus S, you can buy it on a prepaid contract, or not prepaid, but just on a standard 2-year contract through T-Mobile in the United States, or you can also just buy it unlocked, use it anywhere you like. So just go ahead and just assume that it's on T-Mobile. And as far as the coverage on T-Mobile, not the greatest in the world either. So really, I think it's kind of a wash. For both phones are going to be decent, but not spectacular. Now where it comes into where the real differences lie are the operating systems themselves. Now obviously the iPhone 4 is going to run the iOS 4 operating system. This is the Apple operating system that's on the iPhone, the iPod Touch, as well as the slightly tweaked version on the iPad. Now this operating system, in my opinion, is the simplest, easiest to use of any phone available, in my opinion. I mean, it's very polished. They've had a lot of time to work out the little kinks. They've got the App Store, which is really phenomenal, has, I believe, over 100,000 applications. I believe well over that. So you can find all kinds of excellent applications, games, etc., etc. But what I really like about iOS, and of course by extension the iPhone, is the fact that it's just simple to use. There's no complicated, well of course there's some complicated, but for the most part, you want to see something, you just touch on the screen, happens, no problem, and it's just as simple as that. There's not a whole lot of unnecessary complication. Now that's not to say that Android does, however I've just found that Apple and iOS just seems to be a little bit simpler and more user-friendly. Now, moving over to Android, of course, I've previously mentioned how it's a lot more open and allows you to do more things. But on top of that, it still just seems to be just a little bit less polished. Now, that's not to say if you do buy the Nexus S and you do run on Android 2.3, it's going to be some terrible experience or anything. I just find that in my experience, it's just not quite there. Very close, but not quite there. Now, that said, Android 2.3, the latest version of Android, has got a lot of really nice improvements. Now, namely, of course, it's going to be faster, but a lot of the UI and experiences. So, they've changed the look of the phone, and it runs very nicely. So I do like that quite a bit. So from that standpoint, kind of give it to the iPhone. However, both of them will probably be okay for what you need to do. Now, the Nexus S does have a few nice features that are brand new, of course. It does have a front and rear-facing camera, just like on the iPhone. Now, on the iPhone, it does have FaceTime, where you can actually go ahead and just, hold the phone up. You can actually go ahead and video chat with people. You can technically do the same thing on the Nexus S. However, it's not quite as good. There's no simple, easy way to do it. You just have to find some app. So, the camera's there. You just need to find an app and make sure that your friend or your family or whatever who you want to talk to also has that same app. So, a little bit less easy and simple, but it's not the hugest deal. Now, one of the really cool things that the Nexus S does is it supports NFC, also known as Near Field Communication. Now, this actually has a lot of potential. While today you probably won't find much use of it, maybe in a month or 6 months, probably even a year from now, it'll be very, very useful. I would expect that a lot of phones are going to start using it. Basically, what it allows is you can go ahead and just take the phone, and it turns almost into like a wireless little device where there are a lot of different things, such as if you want to use it as a credit card, the options there. Again, not currently, but it will be there where if, let's say, you're in the store and you want to pay for something, you just take your phone, set it down near a sensor, and it'll go ahead and automatically do everything you need. So there are really a lot of really interesting things, and of course it's not anywhere near limited to that. There's many, many more things you can do. That's one of the really cool things I do like about the Nexus S. So anyway, guys, if you're really having to pick between the two of them, the carrier isn't an option. You don't have to worry about anything else. You just want to pick which phone you like more. It's really going to come down to what kind of user you are. If modding isn't a big deal, if you just like the stock experience from both phones, if you like, it doesn't matter about the apps, a lot of the stuff. You just want a good phone that's going to, make the good phone calls, surf the internet, do all that kind of stuff. The iPhone's probably going to be the way to go. Like I said, it's dead simple to use. There are, of course, more options and everything you can do, but the iPhone is just very, very simple. However, if you're up to modding your phone, if you like to customize it a bunch, and you don't mind using an operating system that's just a little bit less supported, of course, by apps. You won't find quite as many apps, but overall, it's still a very, very solid experience. You won't have a problem going with the Nexus S. So really, it's kind of up to you and what you like to do. Okay, so for the second segment of D3 Live, I'll be taking live questions from everyone. As always, every episode of D3 Live is filmed in front of Blog TV, and we've got over 40 people in here right now, so we'll go ahead and just take some questions. All right. When will there be an iPhone for Verizon? That question I've heard so many times. Honestly, I don't know the answer, and I don't think anybody short of maybe Steve Jobs knows that answer. We've heard so much talk about it maybe coming out January, or at least sometime early next year with the iPhone 4. I can believe it. There's so much evidence, but the problem is that there's always rumors. There's rumors. And what it really comes down to is whether or not you can pick the bad ones from the good ones. So, you'll hear a lot of chatter. You'll hear, oh, I've got a picture of this, picture of that. But what it really comes down to is if you can decide, well, wait, that's not real, that's real. And to be honest, I'm not smart enough to figure that out. So, to be entirely honest, I have no idea when or if it's ever going to come out. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out in the next few months, but I really couldn't say. Why is there a delay in the white iPhone 4? Again, kind of nothing I really know. We've heard some things that they're having issues with making them. Something about like light leakage. Like if you've ever seen a lot of the white phones in general, but even the white electronics with screens. With black, it kind of seals up the light. So, but what I mean by light leakage is if you take the iPhone and you look at it, especially in the dark, you'll see that around the screen you'll see like little bits of like light leaking from the side and stuff, which obviously you don't want. That's one of the main thing I've heard. It's either that or they can't quite get the white color right. But at any rate, it does seem like it's some kind of manufacturing issue where they just can't make the iPhone in something other than black. However, it does sound like they will have it out here sometime early next year. I believe spring is pretty much, they've been pretty firm that they will be able to get it done by then. Is the next iPhone going to be called the iPhone 4G? I don't think it will, for a couple of reasons. For one, I don't think that 4G will be ready next year. I know obviously AT&T is one of the last people with 4G service, but another reason I don't think that they will actually call it the 4G is just because there's already the iPhone 4. Now it's absolutely possible, don't get me wrong, especially I don't want to be quoted here in a few months when they actually do call it the iPhone 4G, but I just don't really think so. It just doesn't make sense. I think they'll probably call it maybe the iPhone 5 or something, but again, it's just guesses. It's just my opinion. So don't take it too seriously. Will the iPhone 5 be better than the iPhone 4? Yeah, I would say so. Every time they refresh the iPhone, always add new features, make it faster. They do something. Can I do a drop test of the Nexus S? Okay, I don't have a Nexus S. If I did, though, I would definitely not try to demolish it just for a video. I love you guys, but I couldn't do that. Does the Nexus S have different colors? No, not that I know of. Now, it's always a possibility that they might do it a little bit later on, but for now, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. The Nexus S, how much memory does it have? It's a good question. I believe it's going to be either 8 or 16 gigabytes. I do know for a fact that it does not have any kind of expandable, which is kind of a little bit odd for an Android phone. There's no place where you can add extra storage via a micro SD card, but I believe it's either 8 or 16 gigabytes. Can you jailbreak your Nexus S to be like an iPhone 4? Yeah, somebody's trolling me here, but no, you can't. You can get Android on the iPhone 4, but you can't really get iOS on an Android device. Do I think Android 2.3 is better than 2.2? Absolutely. There's a lot of really cool things in Android 2.3. Namely, a lot of it is just the style of it. It looks a lot better. It's more polished. You actually, for example, when you scroll up on the screen, got a nice little overlay on the bottom that kind of looks really nice. So a lot of it's just minor touches just to make it look better. Although there are some really important things such as the keyboard, which is much, much better. Is it possible to run the Mac OS on an iPad? No, I don't really think so. I mean, of course, anything's possible, but it would take a lot of work to try to get OS 10 on an iPad, just because it actually runs in a different kind. I don't want to get into too technical, but it runs different kind of hardware that's really not compatible. It's the iOS 4.2 or Android 2.3. I kind of got into this in the earlier video. I kind of prefer iOS for a little bit. But again, it kind of depends on what kind of user you are. I really while I like the modding and everything, I'm fairly experienced with jailbreaking, so that's not a big deal to me. And I just know I've got so much invested in the iOS. I know all the the ins and outs and everything. So personally, for me, I kind of like iOS. However, Android 2.3 is such a phenomenal OS. It's just hard for me to say, well, this one's better, or that one's better, when they're both just equally good, I suppose. Do I like iOS 4.2.1? 4.2.1, of course, if you don't know, is the latest version for the iPhone 4 and, of course, the iPad and the iPod. I like it. It's okay. I mean, as far as the update, I mean, overall as an OS, like I said, I like it a lot. As far as the update goes, not a big update, but, it's not too bad. Anyway, guys, I'd definitely like to thank you all for watching this week's episode of D3 Live. If you're interested, you can see more, you can go ahead and subscribe to my channel. There should be a link up there somewhere. By subscribing, you can go ahead and keep up to date with all my videos, including stuff on the Nexus S, the iPhone, and much, much more technology-related content. But in addition to that, you can go ahead and see D3 Live every Saturday. I do this at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, so you can go ahead and watch actually live, or of course you can just watch the pre-recorded episode later on. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching.